Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe. So as I'm recording this, it is now the very first Monday of my week off in April that I like to take around mid-month. And as much as I would probably want to do another wander in the city to show off on camera, the truth is, being home and having the house to myself means that I'm able to do a couple of home projects. Because as you already know, if you've been following me for the last few years, I'm a homeowner. I'm a DIYer for a few things, so sometimes I like to get stuff done rather than paying somebody else to get things fixed for me. And one thing is for sure is that we do need to do a new bathroom vanity. So you might recall back in 2021, I showed off a video where I put together how I was taking my basement bathroom that had been sitting dormant for minimum 8 years or probably even longer than that, and just fixed up the fixtures, did a few other repairs to make it functional again. I'll put a card in the top right corner for you, but keep in mind that that episode is one of the longer ones I've done, so make sure you have an hour's worth of time. Now, one thing I knew I would have to do eventually is probably replace that vanity down there, because it was one of those that looked like it was, abnormal, but I'm going to explain a bit about that later on. And it's actually a pretty straightforward thing. Usually, of course, because normally you just have to take the old vanity, put the new one in, attach it to the wall, add some caulking around, and then you're good to go. But because one of my running themes about my repairs here is that previous owners did a lot of the work themselves without really knowing what to do, either lazy, cut corners, or whatever the excuse. So I know I'm going to be finding some, difficulties, and it could be a good teaching lesson to give a few basic concepts of a house and how they would build things in a basement. So we're going to be doing that very soon. Before we do get to the project, here's my suggestion for you. That's right, click that subscribe button below and put the notification bell on, because that way, if there's a new video ready to view, you're going to get a pop-up on your phone. Also, give me a like too. The more likes I get, the more these videos are promoted all across YouTube, so it does help me out a lot more than you think. Now, let's go right to the vanity. Here we are in the basement bathroom once again. You might recognize it from those last few years because of the brick painting over here they did for whatever reason. But here's just a recap of what it looked like. It seemed like what they had done is they took this piece of plywood or paneling that would have been originally 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, and just laid it on top here on a diagonal counter. Now originally when I was replacing the sink, which is one of these drop sinks, I had used a piece of paneling coated with a bit of oil paint because I thought it would have been water resistant. Turns out it wasn't the best thing to do because it seems like that just absorbs water, moisture, and it's just going to be deteriorating over time. So it's a pretty good reason to finally get this thing repaired. There's going to be a few things I'm going to have to take a look at, and I'll show you each step when I'm doing the demolition. But one thing for sure is that what they had done is that, I don't really understand it, but they use this shoe molding that you typically use for finishing a floor, for finishing around other furniture, but they just laid it on top of the wall over here, and that's not what you're supposed to do. Anything that has a joint in your water needs to have caulking, so you'd make sure no water penetrates and gets into the cracks. So right off the bat, we know that we got bad insulation here. So I'm just going to have to start removing this and this. Oop, I forgot that there was a hole in that wall, but hopefully I'll be able to patch it up, because that's going to be some of my goal is, as I'm fixing things here, it's like having all the open space would be a perfect opportunity to get some stuff fixed and maybe brought up to code. Now, before I do anything with plumbing, one thing you got to remember too is you got to shut off the water. Typically under a sink you would have shut-off valves for each one of your fixtures, but they didn't have that over here. So I'm not sure if it's something they did themselves or if it's an original, but to be on the safe side, I'm going to be turning off the water for the entire house. I'm going to run this faucet for a bit, run the faucet upstairs, just make sure I get as much water out of the pipe as possible. There's still going to be some here, but I'm just going to cap that off for when I'm taking care of it. So, time to get me tools. Okay, water's off. Finally got all the water out of this faucet. Time to take this apart. First thing I'm going to do, get these doors off, just so I have a little bit more extra room, and it's the most straightforward thing. Are these screws actually painted on? Good Lord. Come on. All right, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Well, I already ran into a little bit of a struggle. Turns out they didn't use the exact same screws for all the doors. So I got some Phillips heads, some Robinson heads, which are the screws, which are the square screws, and I think there's even a flat head here. Once again, I'm always wondering, what were they thinking when they constructed this? Oh. Well, so much for all the screws being the different sizes, because I got to one and all I had to do was yank it apart. I guess it's one of the easier elements. So, next thing I'm going to be doing is closing up all of the I'm going to be replacing I'm just going to be disconnecting all the plumbing, so water supply, drain. I'm going to pull the sink off. I'm not going to junk it all together because I will be reusing this later in the future. Then after that's all done, it'll be time to yank all of this out. These P-traps, or plumbing traps as they call them, are pretty straightforward to remove. They have these little plastic nuts at the bottom that you just have to twist off by hand, and then you'll be able to disconnect it. Oh, there you go. Make sure you have a bucket handy, because these traps, they're designed so that they're supposed to hold water so that you're not going to have sewer gas seeping into your fixtures through your sink or through your toilet. In the case of the toilet, the water in the tank, in the bowl, is your trap. And of course I'm going to want to cover this up, because even though I have a trap somewhere within the house that's going to block it from this point, I don't want to get any potential gas coming in, because that stuff is nasty. And if you've never smelled the sewer gas before, it's basically just, it smells like rotten eggs. It's not very safe. So there you go. Orange cap here, and I'm just going to be putting that on. It's covering it up. And for this water supply line that's going to the sink, it's just these hexagonal connections with these corded, embroidered, I think nylon pipes, about 3/8 of an inch in diameter. So you just need to twist it off with a wrench, and then you can unscrew it with your hand. To be safe though, because I know I'm gonna have to put the water supply back on later for lunch, I have these copper heads with the gasket in here, so that in case there is water that overflows, and also if I need to turn on the water again, I could block it off, and it's gonna be safe. Whoa, there we go. So it seemed like there was still water flowing in here. There, so that's fine now. Maybe I'll have to get something else checked in here one of these days, because I feel like that should not have happened. I don't know, maybe it's just me. All right, so water supply is cut off. Now I'm gonna be taking my X-Acto knife, and I'm just gonna be doing a cut under here, because there is some silicone underneath to make sure that when you have a sink placed on top, that there's no wire that goes underneath in between the countertop and the porcelain. It's kind of like a little shield to make sure that nothing goes there and nothing rots. Yep, the labor of my project seems like that it didn't go as I expected it to, because for sure, that swelling you see over here is a result of water getting onto organic material. There's not much I could really do about that, but it just goes to show that some stuff is not designed for being exposed to water. Case in point, the original floor that I had in here when I moved into the house was original sticky tile and then some wood laminate put a top. You'd never use that in the bathroom. Yep, one thing I can say about silicone is that when it bonds, it's a pretty strong bond. Because I've had before instances where I was replacing the caulking around my shower. Silicone is a pain to have to scrape up. But eventually I should be able to get this out. I'm seeing some lifting coming over here. So maybe I could just cut around the board, and that can make my life a little bit easier. Oh, still pulling it out. There we go. It's giving up the ghost. So let's keep this aside. I'm probably gonna need to do some cleanup around here, but next thing I could do now is just get this thing all demolished. If all else fails, use your knife to make a cut so you can break the seal. Or you could just use a hammer instead. Okay, I've yanked it off. Almost there. Ta-da! My God. You'll notice that when I took this thing off that the side of this cabinet is a lot more flimsy than I expected it to be. Hopefully it means I could just pry it apart easily and I could get this out of the way. Okay, removing that old cabinet was a lot easier than I expected it to. I guess if the hardest thing I was worried about was the type of screws because they're painted on different sizes or worn out, I'm good. But now it shows that I'm exposing the wall that's in back of here. Now, this is kind of what I was afraid of too. You got these little slabs of like 1x2 or 1x3. My guess is that this is strapping that they're using to hold the cabinet in place. But what you'll notice too is that typically it's going to be drywall that they have in back here and then you lay it on top. But I think what they did is they took this random wood paneling. Usually you'll put this on top of drywall, not as on top of the wall itself. So, yeah. And it's a good way to kind of expose and see what's in back of here. So obviously, I'm expecting to see some dust gathering around, and I'm just going to be able to vacuum that up later and then we're good to go. But what I wasn't too impressed to see is that, well, I guess I'll just tear this apart further and then we'll find out together. There we go. Okay, I think over here I have a stud that I'm working on, so if I'll just pry it off of here, then I should be able to get the strapping off. Okay. Very soon I should be getting into this board. Oh, there's just one more piece left. I think the strapping is just held together with one screw because I don't see any other wood laying around here. I am going to want to be careful because even though this stuff is tight and secure, I am still working around plumbing, and so I want to make sure I'm extra cautious if something goes wrong. Well, I want to make sure that nothing goes wrong in the first place. What? Did this thing actually snap in half? Good Lord. Okay, only one piece of a panel left and then I should be good to go. What the? Is this like, you remember old computer paper from like the 1980s and 90s that had these holes on it, but you're able to tear it off the side of the paper? Either that or is this a medical bracelet? I don't think I want to know exactly why it's in here. It's not the first time I found crazy stuff buried in my walls. Ta-da! The final panel. So, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of a dusting, vacuuming here before I can continue my work, but I already have a sense of what I'm going to be working with in this room, and it's a good way to show that teaching opportunity of what they do in a basement. Now, in case I haven't brought it up before, I live in a 1973 house, which has been held up pretty well over the years, but there's obviously some work that would need to be done. So, if you're going to be finishing a basement from back then, or even to the present day, depending on the materials, what people would be doing is they'd be using this white styrofoam to apply directly to the concrete that's in back. That's a form of insulation, a little bit different than the insulation that I used up in my attic around 2020, 2021. I'll put a card in the top right corner if you want to revisit that episode when I was doing the early days of the channel. But essentially you need something like this against your concrete because this is going to keep it dry. If you were to apply fiberglass in here and put it directly on against your concrete, it's going to be wet and it's not going to insulate. Reason being, concrete is a porous material. So what that means is that any moisture that's going to be outside, from snow falling, from rain, or if you have like gardens around it, it's going to be absorbed in here and then penetrate into the house. That's actually one of the biggest sources of humidity in the house, is moisture from the concrete in your basement. The walls, even an older house, on the floor they would not necessarily have had a vapor barrier, like a 6mm sheet of plastic placed directly at the bottom before they poured the concrete. That would also prevent moisture from getting in. But I see at the bottom here, it looks like that there's some that was removed or cut out. I'm not sure what to make of this, but basically what I'm going to have to do is reapply some of that. I'm going to have to basically like reinstall some of that into here to be able to add a little bit of insulation, because I know that if I'm putting my hand around here, there is going to be some cold air that's getting into the room. It's not perfect, but it's going to be a start, because let's face it, the only way you can really have perfect insulation is if you tear apart your entire house, renovate it, and rebuild everything from scratch. But that's not going to be very cost effective. But good news too is that they did the framing right in front of the insulation. So that's perfect. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You put your rigid foam in the back, then you frame it with your 2x4s or 2x6. I think it's a 2x... It looks like it's a 2x4. And frame it with that. And newer homes, what they would do is right against that space over here, they would put fiberglass like a little bit extra to give some extra heat resistance or heat transfer, because it works in the winter and in the summer. Now, around here is where I'm going to have to install my vanity, but I need something I can attach it into here. So I think I'm going to have to probably install a little bit more wood before I'm good to do that. Luckily, it's a straightforward fix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up around here, head off to the hardware store to get the material I need, and then we'll be right back to complete the installation. It's a good thing I still had some leftover tiles, like sticky tiles from when I redid this bathroom a few years ago, because it meant after I had to remove the vanity, I would have needed to put some new flooring in here, and at least this will get the job done. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's a basement bathroom, so it's not much you can really do about it, and I'm fine with it. I just want it functional. Anyways, I'm probably going to be taking some drywall and filling this up as much as I can so that it's not going to be as exposed. But one thing to keep in mind too is, as you can see, I got some electrical going here and here. So my understanding about building code is that you're able to have a wire going through an inch and a stud, an inch and a quarter within the middle of the stud. So like wiring your plumbing and etc. The reason is that you would have to screw this in, and it's a way that you have enough depth that the screw is not going to make contact with the electrical or the plumbing. But something you can do too, if you want to be on the safe side, is you can go to your hardware store and you can find these protector plates. So what this does is that you can lay this right on top of the, like right over where the wire is. I feel like I have enough room in here, but just to be on the safe side, you just take the plate, Something else I'm going to have to remember too is that my vanity is going to be about 33 inches high up to this top point. So somewhere around here, I am going to have to put some blocking in here, because I have the screws that are supposed to be going into the structure, but it will be going within this gap and that gap, and I already don't have any wood here that I could attach it to. So that's one thing to remember too if ever you're doing a vanity. If you have a place you want to put it in, you will have to open up your walls, add some blocking within the existing studs. So it just means I have to take a 2x4 and cut across so it goes right over here, and then I'll be able to fasten it in. Good news too is that I have the barrier, so that means I don't have to use pressure treated wood here. Pressure treated wood is engineered so that it's able to make contact with the ground, so you can use it for outdoor projects like a deck, like a border around your garden, anything that goes up against your concrete. If you use spruce, pine, cedar, well, maybe not cedar, but if you use spruce or pine, those are natural woods that aren't formulated to be designed to handle that. So whatever moisture is in there is going to absorb right into the wood, and it's going to cause you a lot of problems and rot, among other things. So I have some lumber. I am going to get that cut soon. That's one. So it's a 2x4, so you need 2 screws, like 1 on each side for every 2 inches. There, that's solid. Now I have everything I need to be able to get this thing framed and secured to the wall now. I'll admit that I actually shortcut this thing, but the good news is, if you shortcut it, you just have to get yourself some cedar shims. Same thing they use if they're installing door frames, window frames, just to shove this as far as you need. And the beauty is that it's such a soft wood that you just take a knife, then once it's in place, you just cut it off like this, and you can discard the rest. So I'm just gonna get rid of the remainder here. There we go. It's all framed. And next step I'm gonna do is probably gonna be adding some foam to this, because like I said, there is some exposed concrete, but I wanna make sure that there's a bit more insulation so it's a bit more protected, more than this stuff. This white stuff, from what I heard, is about R1, which the R level is the resistance to heat transfer between objects. The other stuff I have is R5. Not much, but at least it's going to be a slight improvement. Now what I picked up over at the hardware store today was some rigid foam, like I said, R5. Thing is that you can get these in giant panels, so maybe 2 feet by 8 feet, because the idea is that you use this to insulate your basement and then add your insulation and framing as you go along. Now, ideally, it's not going to be the perfect system. What I want to say is it's not going to be the perfect system, because this stuff has a tongue and groove that I actually have another piece. Like, what you do is that you install them, you put this bottom groove at the bottom, and then this one on top, so it creates a continuous seal as you go along. It's not ideal, but I know that if I want to get ideal insulation in here, I have to basically redo the whole thing, cut it up, and I don't have the time and the budget for that. And I want to make sure I still have time for fun stuff around the city of Montreal. So I'm just going to be cutting open a tube of adhesive, and by the way, make sure you get this adhesive over here. It says Lepage PL 300. This is an adhesive that's meant for foam boards, because other adhesives you could find on the market, apparently, you put that on these boards, it's going to disintegrate the board, and you really don't want that. This stuff is formulated just for that. Whoop. Huh. Well, I guess this thing was pressurized enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bead here, like in the corner, and then just apply it. And I'm going to clean up the rest on the floor here, because I don't want to have that kind of mess. You don't really need too much, apparently, because the way the stuff works is that you want to make sure there's still airflow in the back, so that if like you have a water event or more like moisture that comes in, it can just dry off with the airflow that happens in back of the house, just like so. So here. Okay, that was a bit of a tighter squeeze than I expected it to be, but what can you do? It's still better than what it was before. All right, and I'll do the same thing on this one. Okay, so I had to do a bit of a detour, because it turns out that this is taking a little bit longer than I expected. Had to cut up some of the pieces of drywall a bit more. Plus I realized I was out of drywall screws, so I had to go to the hardware store once more to get my supplies. So for all intents and purposes, this is sealed up as best as I can without having to gut the whole thing. Now my plan is to just get this vanity installed now. It's not going to be perfect, but here's my idea. all this stuff over here, typically, if it's an exposed wall, then you would probably get some compound or mud, tape it up, and then it will look like a finished wall. But because this is all going to be blocked up by the furniture, I don't care. It's a basement bathroom. It will probably need to be redone down the road too, but at least it's going to make it all functional. I'll install that. And any taping I would have to do would just be on the sides that are exposed around here. So anything that, the vanity's going to be about 36 inches. So it goes up to like here, which means I would just have to tape this side. The rest of this, I wouldn't even need to do. So, should probably get the water closed once again because lunchtime is over. And we're going to get to the final steps. Hopefully it's an easy one. Oh, right, almost forgot to mention too. According to building code, from what I've heard, if you're doing, let's say, a full panel of, let's say, a 4 foot by 8 foot drywall, you need about 5 screws per stud over here. And considering this is going to be about, yeah, this is less than 4 feet tall, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and probably a bit more solid than I wanted it to be, or that needs to be, but this is one case where I thought better to be safe than sorry. Just thought I'd throw that out there for you. There we go. So here's one vanity over here. It's going to be about 36 inches long and probably like less than 2 feet wide. Now, what you would do is you want to back this up into your wall so that it's able to be flush with this, and then there's 2 pre-drilled holes in here, which is going to go directly into the backing that I put into the wall here. So that's how you're going to secure it. Oh, of course, this is supposed to be easy to install if things are standard, but obviously in this house, nothing is standard. In theory, you have this backing here along with this backing, and the idea is that if you had your plumbing all within this gap, then you have a lot of space to work with. But I don't know why it's installed this way, but it seems like it comes out from the bottom here, and from here, guts outwards, and then comes in a very erratic design, which means, oh, my head. It's not ideal, but I think I'm gonna have to cut this so I'm able to let it go through. So I've already done some markings here, so I know exactly where I need to work with. Okay, there we go, almost there. There. Yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but at least this way, the piping is able to be pushed through, and I'll be able to fit this in the wall. And just as luck would have it too, the spot that I had to cut off also had like a structural screw in here to hold it together. So what I did was I took it out of the hole, moved it one place over here to hold this panel up, and I had an extra screw here just to be on the safe side. So I probably need to just clear off the dust in here, because when you're doing sawing, it gives off a lot more dust than you realize. Ugh, my God. Okay, get this off. Let's give this a lift. And make sure this all fits in. And yep, we're good. So, okay, this thing is not perfect, but I mean, considering the style bathroom, it's not going to be ever perfect at all. But I think the important thing is that this is now flush up against the wall. So that means I'll be able to attach this into the blocking I created, and then we're good to go. But maybe I should do one last cleanup in here because there's still quite a bit of dust. I'm not sure why they included this in here, but there's 2 pieces of hardware for mounting the vanity into the wall. This gigantic screw that's going to go through the framing here, into the drywall, and into the 2x4 that I installed earlier in the afternoon. Or actually it was earlier in the morning. So 2 of these, and they're going to go through these pre-drilled holes like I mentioned. But it seems like what it also comes with are these 2 anchors. I don't know if this would be sturdy enough, because I guess if you want to hold it into a wall, then it's fine. Although it's not going to be structural, because I've heard that these things will just be pulled out. The only way you can really hold it in place is if you have actual wood in here. And I'm going to try to get this in, see how successful it's going to be. All right, take 1. And when you hear that noise, that means it's making contact with the wood, so you have success. There we go. And second, whoa, dang it. Hate when I drop this shit. There we go. Let's try that again. Second screw is going to be going in now. into the blocking. There. All right, sturdy in here. Let's give this a little tighten. There. That vanity is not going anywhere. So now the most difficult part is out of the way. That means I can get going on the final step, which is, or actually it's one of the two final steps. Put in the drop-in sink, which goes right on top of the vanity. Then I could get the plumbing reattached and the doors. Actually, there's more steps than I counted, but that's besides the point. So unlike the other sink that I had done before, which was like one of those round ones you could drop into like a vanity that's made out of laminate that you cut to for what you need, this is one of those single piece ones that I am going to be dropping in here. And I kind of wonder how this is going to be mounted on. Let me look at the instruction booklet. Well, this is pointless. What it's doing right now is it's giving me instructions on how to place this into a laminate countertop and then, you know, cutting it, making sure it's drilled, which is not exactly the same one because this goes right on top of it. Regardless, what I'm going to do first, just to make it easier, is get all of the fixtures installed in here. So yeah, it's a 3-hole vanity, so you could put a 3-hole, 1-hole of faucet in here. If it's a 1-hole faucet, it goes in the center, but then it has a plate that it could be, which is going to cover these holes, so you're not going to have any gaps. Luckily, this one is a 3-hole one, so I could just reinstall it over here, you know, like so. But what I'm also going to be doing is getting a bit of silicone, or maybe I should scrape this off, because this is leftover plumber's putty. Any material you have, like going plastic to porcelain, plastic to metal, and it's plumbing, you need some kind of a gasket so you get some protection and don't get water damage under here. Plumber's putty is like, you know, Play-Doh for plumbers or adults. You could even use silicone caulking, and that's also going to get the job done. So I'm just going to get this attached so that I don't have to spend as much time underneath to reattaching all of this, unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so I had a change of plan. It was a little too difficult for me to maneuver around, and considering I have enough space over here, I think I'll be able to attach this on its own without having to keep this upside down, so false alarm. Okay, we're all in good business now. I had to wait a day because turns out I needed to do another trip to the hardware store because my silicone had dried out. I was all out of extension pipes because I only had an 18-inch long extension here, but I need to get another 20 inches so I could go from the copper pipe up to the faucet. Not to mention that the plumbing over here was kind of bad because based on the layout, this P-trap that I had installed originally was not long enough to reach the main drain. So I had to get a new trap, and it's actually a little bit better, so I'll show you quickly. So here's the new drain. It's actually very similar to the one that I installed in my kitchen upstairs when I was redoing the venting in there. I'll put a card in the top right corner if you want to see that one, but essentially, just need to get an extension that was more an 1.5 inch diameter, a larger trap, and a new adapter that goes up here so I could get into the sink. So not only is this going to hold more water, but it means it could probably drain even better. Because when you have an extra 1/4 inch of diameter, it does make a difference. And the other thing I had to make sure of too is I would take my caulking, well, something like this, or actually my tube is somewhere else, but regardless, take your caulking and then the perimeter between the porcelain of the sink and the wall, you just apply it there so that if you have any water, just going to repel right on top of here. Yeah, it's weird because everything I've seen about the previous owners, they were averse to caulking for reasons I don't quite understand. When they redid their bathroom, they didn't put that in any of the joints between the tiling, tile to the shower, even underneath the shower and underneath the bathtub. So that's like water damage waiting to happen. So the only other thing I'm going to be doing now is getting these doors assembled and installed on here, and then once this is completed, we'll basically have a working vanity, and then all I have to do down the road is patch up these walls that are surrounding it, then we're good to go. So here we are. This episode was not as comprehensive as I wanted it to be, just because of how long it took and the trips I had to do to the hardware store. But for all intents and purposes, we put together a bathroom vanity on our own. So everyone, thanks for watching this latest edition of the Wanayuki Cheese Cafe. If you like what you see, you know what to do. That's right. Hit that subscribe button below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my antics, my wanders, my stories I share, projects I do at home, and etc. And if you have any ideas for future episodes, leave in the comments. I'll see what I could do. Until then, take care. See you next time, and above all else, enjoy the ride. Okay, these are the brackets I will put in, so I'm going to attach it in here and then I'll install it in the wall.